Hello, colleagues from all over the world and time zones. Welcome to the first webinar in Topics in National Bibliographies, a virtual event series brought to you by the IFLA Bibliography section. I'm Rehabo. I work at the Bibliotheca Alexandrina in Egypt. I am the chair of the Bibliography section, and I'm delighted to be your host today. With me is Maud Henry from the Bibliographic Information Agency of the Royal Library of Belgium. She is the secretary of the IFLA Bibliography section. Maud will be monitoring your questions in the Q&A box and moderating the question and answer part at the end of the session. And behind the scenes, ensuring everything is running smoothly, is our information coordinator of the Bibliography section, Isabel Ayres, who is a library and information science professor from Brazil. And special mention to Rebecca Higgins from the review team, who reviewed the proposals and the presentations for this webinar. Rebecca is working at the Library of University of New England, and inside the Bibliography section, she's sharing the working group maintaining the National Bibliographic Register. And on behalf of all our colleagues in the Bibliography section standing committee, thank you for joining us today. We are also privileged today to have live support from Megan Price, the amazing, super creative, endlessly supportive IFLA Professional Support Officer. And we thank IFLA for all the tools, the management and technological infrastructure, and the support they provide us to help us fulfill our mandates toward the global library community. Before we pass to our program, let's do some housekeeping. So I'm going to share my screen now. Let's see. So this is our team for you to know the faces and the roles. And our today's theme is on the practicalities of building a national bibliography, drawing inspiration from models from around the world. And as mentioned to you previously, this is the first webinar in the virtual event series. The second webinar will be like in 2 months, and it will bear the title of National Bibliographies, Wider Perspective. And the date is already set for Thursday, 27th of June, 2024. Save the date, stay tuned. We'll get in touch with you within 1 month about the details. The webinar is recorded, and we'll make the recording available on our website and on YouTube once ready. If you have questions and or comments, please put them in the Q&A box. You can put them on the chat at any time of the webinar. You can certainly use the chat, but we highly advise for the high visibility of your question and also to have a streamlined questioning and also to have an energized and enriched discussion at the end of the webinar, that you put them at the Q&A button. And abbreviation are welcome, like if you are typing quickly, you can use like the German National Bibliography, NB, Philippine, NB, and so on. If you want to use the closed captioning, we advise you to use the English language, because the other language are sometimes out of scope and there are hallucinations. So It might help you that if you use the English, it will get you the information and provide you with the time to follow with the presentation. Like our international audience for this webinar, our program today is truly international, featuring 4 national bibliographies from 4 different countries in 3 continents. We'll be looking at different models, diverse landscape, and varying conditions and history of establishment, and also roadmaps for development. Each national bibliography is unique, yet there are common grounds and essential foundation for this national undertaking, that is establishing and operating national bibliography. And that's what we are going and we are trying to explore together today. We hope that our program will be interesting, useful, and inspiring to you. And I'll stop now sharing my screen to start introducing our first national bibliography for today. That's a national bibliography that is 213 years old, yet very alive and very inspiring and very high-tech. And that's the French National Bibliography. And the presentation will be by Mathilde Koskas. She is the head of the book section of the French National Bibliography with 15 years experience in producing the National Bibliography. She has been the chair of the IFLA Bibliography section for 4 years, and also the secretary of IFLA Division 3, then Division H, between 2019 and 2023. She is currently a member of the IFLA cataloging section and co-chair of the working group on universal bibliographic control. Mathilde, the mic and screen are yours.
Thank you, Rehab. I apologize. I was missing the button to turn my mic back on. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having me at this first webinar on topics in national bibliographies. It's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this exciting new project. This presentation is an attempt at using the unique history of the doyen of national bibliographies to address different aspects of establishing and operating a national bibliography. I entitled it The French National Bibliography, a 213-year-old newborn, for 2 reasons. The bibliography was founded in 1811 and has been published continuously since, except for wartime interruptions. In those 213 years, it evolved continuously in line with a variety of objectives and users. Yet, in its current form of a dynamic website, it was only launched in 2020, which is quite recent. So this is an attempt at finding aspects of this long-term and more recent history that help us think about building a national bibliography. Long before the National Bibliography was created, we can find in the Montpellier Ordinance of 1537, the first attempt at legal deposit, a rationale that sounds familiar. We have decided to remove, put, and assemble in our library all the works worthy of being seen which have been or will be made, to have recourse to them if by chance they were lost from the memory of men. The constitution of what we would call cultural heritage is emphasized, but the purpose is also one of control of the intellectual output. Under the monarchy, these 2 objectives mostly converged. The former also fueled a variety of attempts by individuals or by the states at universal or national bibliographies. However, our modern concept of basing the national bibliography on legal deposit was not yet at play. With the Decree of Amsterdam in 1811, Napoleon put policing and censorship at the forefront again. But this time, the attempt at the National Bibliography took. A system was put in place that enabled both the conservation of the national cultural heritage and a strong control over what was produced. Tellingly, the records were not created by the Imperial, then Royal, then National Library until the 20th century. They were compiled from the declaration slips to the Minister of the Interior in charge of policing. The 19th century sees the advent of the modern publishing house. While legal deposit remains mandatory for printers, it also applies to publishers with the 1925 law, with the 1925 law that paves the way for legal deposits as solely heritage-oriented. Publishers deposit with the National Library, which shares the productions of records with the Interior for a while before being entirely responsible for it. Close relationships between the National Library and publishers is one of the reasons of the success of legal deposit in France. It's very rare nowadays to hear complaints about it being an indirect tax. There is a high level of compliance because the benefits of legal deposit are well understood, and we emphasize them rather than on penalties in our communication. A case in point is the legal deposit of ebooks. Publishers were the first to ask when and how it could be implemented, and have been working closely with the library for more than a decade on that topic, some of them signing agreements to experiment the deposit while we were waiting for the law to catch up. So it's important to know your industry, know how the profession is structured, so that you can be in touch with professional organizations. In the case of books, we work with individual publishers, the national syndicates of publishers, book distributors. Serials, on the other hand, is mostly a non-professional sector. So in addition to newspaper groups, we work with associations and administrations. The audiovisual sector has yet a different organization, but in each case, it's important to explain what they can gain by complying with their legal deposit obligation, to meet with them regularly, work together, share metadata, organize joint professional events, as well as attending each other's professional events. I've been speaking mostly about books, but we get a glimpse of printed materials other than books from the very first issue of the Bibliography in 1811. At first, records for other types of printed documents were mingled with those for books. Gradually, the National Bibliography created different sections for each type of publication, and laws were created for the legal deposit of prints, maps, music, serials, and more recently, audiovisual and digital materials. That's one of the imperatives for national bibliographies. Be open to new types of materials as soon after they come out as possible by adapting legal deposit laws and the National Bibliography. Legal deposit should come first, as it can be very difficult to complete the national collection retrospectively, but you also need to adapt your cataloging rules and practices and the National Bibliography itself so that you provide appropriate information to the type of material with the right structure and access points. On to more contemporary concerns. First, the hiring, training, and retaining of catalogers in, in a quite tense marketplace. My personal experience in over 15 years in legal deposit is that it has become harder to hire, train, and retain catalogers. In France, we are civil servants, so there is an entrance exam. And unfortunately, government policies have tended towards the limitation in the number of public employees. In consequence, the number of positions available for each entrance exam has diminished. The evolution of the work of librarian means that the entrance exams also focus far less on cataloging. It is not a requirement anymore that candidates create a full ISBD record. We now often find ourselves having to train people who have no more than a basic theoretical knowledge of cataloging. Careers and expectations have also evolved a lot. So while training a cataloger at National Bibliographic level still takes about a year, people move jobs far more frequently and often leave the National Bibliography after 3 to 5 years, when older generations tend to stay in one job for decades, which comes with its own challenges. It's obvious to us that the job of cataloger is evolving at a rapid pace, and it is inevitable that the evolution of society, individual aspirations, and technology will converge toward a completely different balance of human versus machine production model for national bibliographies in the coming years. It's up to us to make it a balanced model for the humans involved, be it the individuals working to create the national bibliographic metadata or the citizen users of these metadata. These staff constraints, combined with the steady rise in deposited books, have made it necessary to clarify the legal deposit accession policy, what we call the perimeter of legal deposit. While the number of books has risen steadily over the past 3 decades, not counting ebooks, the number of people cataloging for the National Bibliography has been stable. Some automation has been introduced and metadata has overall become richer. Publishing also evolves constantly with a physical output that challenges traditional conceptions of what is a book. We get activity books like coloring or sticker books, box sets with cookie cutters, mugs, tarot, figurines, and a book that sometimes seems like an afterthought for tax purposes, honestly. Self-published books that are lovingly corrected, given a new cover, 1 centimeter more or less in height, a new font that changes the number of pages, even if the content is untouched, and redeposited many times by their authors. We also get books in the public domain that get reprinted as gifts with your newspaper subscription and so on. The usual criteria for what falls within legal deposit are not working anymore for these types of materials. Different departments of the library have been working together to update them. They have to be simple and clear, as we need to explain them to depositors and have them applied by whole teams across different departments. And we also want them to be stable so we can use them for as long as possible. One of the other principles is that they are not retroactive. It wasn't wrong to take these documents into the library at one point. It's also not wrong to stop now. The publishing phenomenon has been documented. If you look at it with a historical perspective, you see that our predecessors had the same problems. The state of our collections today gives us an idea of the consequences of the decisions they made, and so that we can extrapolate to the decision we are making and try to establish criteria with that in mind. Thus, out of a staffing, storage, and preservation constraint comes a congruous policy that can be shared throughout the library and with publishers, authors, and users within the frame of the current legal deposit law. Finally, I want to address the current metadata revolution. In France, we use national standards based on ISBD. For the past decade, we have been working on new cataloging standards that align with FRBR and IFLA LRM based on RDA, but compatible with our ISBD rather than AACR-based cataloging history. That's RDA-FR. The National Library of France is pioneering a new format, Intermark New Generation, more flexible than the current Intermark format, capable of accommodating the breadth and width of RDA, and being open and interoperable, but also robust and manageable. The library is also developing a new cataloging software, Noemi, for nouer les œuvres, expressions, manifestations et items, or linking works, expressions, manifestations, and items, which will make it possible to do native LRM cataloging using RDFR as a standard and Intermark NG as a format, one of the first fully native LRM cataloging projects. My obvious recommendation here is to use international interoperable standards and formats, especially those created by IFLA, on which the common practices for national bibliographies is your toolbox. This metadata revolution, combined with the trends I mentioned in personnel and legal deposit, and with the new factor of AI and machine learning, creates a feeling of a brave new world awaiting us. The National Bibliography, with its indexes and records set in time, seems at odds with it. Is the whole model going extinct, outdated? Probably if we do nothing. 25 years ago, the National Bibliography was a print publication not fundamentally different from its 19th century predecessor. When it moved online at the start of this century, it was still with the same structure and access. It remained the main online presence of the BNF's metadata with the online catalog for about a decade. It even had the advantage over the catalog that, being a static website, its metadata was harvested by search engines, which the catalog wasn't. Around the turn of that decade, the BNF developed data.bnf.fr so that its metadata could be fully displayed on the semantic web, pushing the bibliography's results farther back in search engines results. Other, more specialized metadata websites were also made available, like the ones for older local press, book bindings, and so on. The bibliography is only one of those specialized subcatalogs now. If it is to remain useful, we have to work on its identity, make it clear and complementary to the rest of what the library is offering. The National Bibliography can't just be available, it has to reach out to users and remind them of what it is uniquely situated to help them with. To do that, you'd need a website that works with metadata that is made available in a timely manner, which, while it is the simple basis of operations, can be more and more of a challenge these days, reminding us that advocacy begins at home. In addition to this, the project of the new website is to offer resources about the bibliography and its metadata, by which I mean not just the user's guides, statistics, data sets, and historical resources that are already available on the website, but also a place where users can share their research and software projects based on the National Bibliographic metadata and web services. I briefly touched on a number of topics while not raising others, like the role of national bibliographies as sources of trusted information in the era of mass information and false information, a topic we've often discussed in similar fora. But as it is, I hope this presentation inspires questions, discussions, and ideas for your bibliography at whatever stage of its life cycle it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mathilde, for this insightful presentation about the national bibliography, its evolution, and all the information about the requirements, the policies, the technologies, and future plan, and also the challenges of the staff turnover. And thank you so much also for keeping the time. We can now move to our next presentation, and we fly to the Philippines to have a new national bibliography featured, this time from the Philippines, where the two colleagues, two presenters, two co-authors, one presenter, are going to present you with a comprehensive review of the historical context and from the historical context to the future development. And we have Jennifer Dimasaca and Marbilyn Egido. Jennifer is the chief of Bibliographic Service Division at the National Library of Philippines with over 2 decades of experience in librarianship, and she also has contributed in the academia by lecturing to imparting her knowledge and experience to aspiring librarians. And she, in IFLA, she is member of the IFBD review group since 2021. And Marbilyn is going to present on behalf of herself and of Jennifer. And Marbilyn is a cataloger at the National Library of Philippines. And prior to that, she has been a library information sites practitioner for over 10 years, and she's a very active member in different committee conducting program aimed at extending the library service to communities in her country. Marbilyn, the screen and mic are yours.
Mabuhay, everyone. Thank you for having us. Now, let me share with you the Philippine National Bibliography, a comprehensive review of historical context, key figures, and future development. To start, here are the contents of today's discussion. First is the objectives of the presentation, followed by the overview. Next is the cataloging and classification practices, then the future developments of the Philippine National Bibliography, and the conclusion. By providing a thorough review of the Philippine National Bibliography, this presentation aims to understand the Philippine National Bibliography, its significance in the Philippine literary community, and its crucial role in fostering research and scholarship. Also, to give valuable insights into the Philippine National Bibliography's role as an invaluable tool in accessing comprehensive information on published works in the country and its ongoing efforts to support and promote Filipino authors and their contributions to the national and global literary landscape. So now, Philippine National Bibliography, or PNB, is a listing of new works published or printed in the Philippines by Filipino authors or about the Philippines, including unpublished works. It also serves as a book selection aid and a catalog of copyright entries for duly copyrighted Filipiniana items. So Filipiniana defines by Wenceslao Retana, a famous Filipinologist, as those that were printed in the Philippines irrespective of the subject they treat, those that are about the Philippines, no matter in what language they were written or the place where they printed, and those that were written by Filipinos on any subject regardless of their input. When did the PNB or the Philippine National Bibliography start? PNB plays a crucial role in maintaining and documenting the country's intellectual and cultural heritage despite limited resources, both as to trained personnel and as to budgetary requirements. The Philippine National Bibliography started and published bi-monthly and cumulated annually in 1974. The bibliographic description was based on the AACR. Then in 1983, the National Library of the Philippines envisaged an integrated library management information system with Technology Resource Center. And in 1985, there is the addition in the PNB listing, which is the thesis and dissertations, and published quarterly. And in 2002, the Philippine National Bibliography was published in PDF and DVD or CD format, published annually. So in 1974 to 2002, PNB format has been in WordStar, converted to Word or .docs, then converted to PDF. And In 2016, through the effort of the Bibliographic Services Division, the PNB online system was developed and launched. The records generated from the KOHA integrated library system, and this one is updated monthly. By this time, we are using the RD or the Resource Description Access as the technical standard for organizing resources, items, and objects for the Philippine libraries. Next. These are the laws into which the Philippine National Bibliography is incorporated. First is the Republic Act 10066, amended by Republic Act 11961, also known as the National Cultural Heritage Act of 2009, which designates the National Library of the Philippines as a cultural agency responsible for rare and significant Philippine books and manuscripts and maintains an inventory and registry of the same. Next is the Republic Act 8293, amended by Presidential Decree 49, known as Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines, which mandates the Copyright Division of the National Library of the Philippines to be responsible for ministerial functions related to approving copyright and as a repository of deposits of instruments and public records registered for the copyright. Last is the Presidential Decree number 812, known as Decree on Legal and Cultural Deposit, and designates the National Library to perform legal and cultural deposit mandates by acting as deposit of actual materials. For the PNB format or the Philippine National Bibliography format, the PNB online system includes the scanned printed PNB from 1974 to 2000, downloaded PDF files from 2002 to 2015, and online system from 2016 to present. These are arranged according to first the classified part, which is the PNB entries are arranged classified sequence according to the DDC system. Secondly, author and title index, wherein the PNB entries are arranged according to alphabetical order by author and title. And lastly, subject index, to find the books in a particular subject. For example, in subject index under composition music, all the subjects related to that have been brought together. Currently, the PNB format may be searched by title, author, subject, and keyword through the PNB online system or through this link, the pnb.nlp.gov.ph. And this one is updated monthly. So here is the example of the PNB entries generated in the KOHA integrated library system and updated monthly. Next is, this is the Google Analytics generated in the Philippine National Bibliography. We started using this on August 2023. And the Philippine National Bibliography is registered in IFLA National Bibliographic Registry since 2022. Next. This is some sample effort of the National Library of the Philippines through the Bibliographic Services Division to promote the Philippine National Bibliography to the public. The Philippine National Bibliography covers the following. Next, books, pamphlets, and non-book materials copyrighted under the Presidential Decree number 49, non-copyrighted books, pamphlets, and non-books materials, regardless of the number of pages, government publications, annuals, first issues of newspapers and periodicals, conference, seminars, or workshop papers, theses and dissertations, titles reprinted in the Philippines under Presidential Decree number 285 as amended by Presidential Decree number 400, and other materials that reflect the intellectual and cultural growth of the Filipino nation. For the cataloging practices of the National Library, so the basic level cataloging starts with the Collection Development Division, except the cataloging in publication entries. The Catalog Division conducts the full full-level cataloging, and the Bibliographic Services Division validates the contents, including the ISBN, ISSN, and the ISMN. So here are the classification tools that we use and we are using. So in 1974, we're using the subject headings, using the dictionary catalogs of the Library of Congress 7th edition. And in 1975 to 1992, the DDC or the Dewey Decimal Classification latest version is added in our classification tools. And in 1986, there is an effort from the National Catalog Committee to expand the Dewey Decimal Classification for the Philippine languages, literature, and history. So in 2003, also the Association for the Special Libraries of the Philippines published the government publication classification scheme intended for the government publications. And in 2006, the Catalog Division of the National Library of the Philippines expanded the DDC for the Philippine Ethnic National Group. Currently, we are using the Library of Congress subject headings, Library of Congress classification, Dewey Decimal classification, and the expansions, and the classification scheme for the Philippine government publications to our cataloging practices. So next is the here is the example or one of the contents of the expansions. This is based on the 19th edition of the Dewey Decimal Classification. So here are the example. The Philippine base number is 959. In DDC, Table 2, base numbers are assigned for 3 major islands, which is the Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Then these base numbers are further expanded to form class numbers of different geographic subdivisions covered by each of the islands. So that's the expansion of the National Library. For the future developments of the Philippine National Bibliography, we are looking forward for the evolution and adaptation to the changing needs and landscape of the information and publishing. So the flexibility in bibliographic standards. So currently, PNB records can be saved as BibTeX, Dublin Core, Mark XML, Mark Non-Unicode, Mark C8, and Mark Unicode UTF-8, and Mark Unicode UTF-8 standard, and modes, or MODS, XML, and WIS, and ISBN. Next is the exhaustiveness. With the proliferation of electronic publications and websites, many creators of the documents are on the web, as there is also an increasing number of people connecting with the internet each day. So new selection criteria must be established to identify what constitutes a national publication to be included in the Philippine National Bibliography and provide direct links to these resources, if available, especially open access resources. Next is the ongoing memorandum agreement between the National Library of the Philippines and the National Book Development Board. There had been an initial meeting to have centralized the bibliographic database that will have single search repository for important bibliographic information of Filipiniana, also integrate with the National Library of the Philippines ISBN registration processes and system, and follows international bibliographic metadata standards. So we are looking for the ONIX standard developed by Editor. Next is the cataloging and classification tools. The NLP is currently working on its new system for the creation of the subject authority records and updating of the expansion tools, since it is based on the 19th edition on Philippine languages, literature, and history and indexing thesaurus. And also add to cart feature collaborations with publishers. With the aim of promoting Filipiniana resources, the National Library would like also to become a venue for linking publishers with users and those who have intention to order books online. Lastly, merging the systems through the ACDA project, or the authors, knowledge, creators, and developers access, creators and publishers registration portal. National Library is responsible for the issuance and application of the ISBN, ISSN, and the ISMN, and also the provider of the cataloging and publication and the Philippine National Bibliography. So one of the institutions mandated by the Republic Act 8293 as deposits of works and PD 812 legal deposits. By leveraging ACDA, creators and publishers will have access to essential tools and services that will empower them to showcase their creations to broader audience. So lastly, for the conclusion of our presentation, the Philippine National Bibliography serves as a crucial resource for researchers, educators, and scholars, providing access to a wide range of published materials that reflect the nation's history, culture, and intellectual development. The National Bibliography facilitates the preservation and promotion of local knowledge, ensuring that publications from diverse regions and communities are represented. It contributes to the formation of national identity and fosters a sense of pride and awareness of Filipino authored works. Accessibility of the Philippine National Bibliography through digital platforms has expanded its reach and improved research capabilities remotely, making it easier to conduct in-depth research and disseminate findings. Future developments for the Philippine National Bibliography should prioritize establishing partnerships with libraries, academic institutions, and publishers to ensure a more comprehensive representation of Philippine publications. Collaborations with international organizations can also enhance the exchange of knowledge and improve access to foreign materials. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer and Marbilyn, and thank you twice, Marbilyn, for presenting today. And this is a really comprehensive overview about the National Bibliography of the Philippines, and also its place in a relationship and in the national landscape with different players and different collaborators, and so inspiring, really, and full of take-home messages and inspiration to colleagues as they are interested in how to develop their national bibliography. Thank you so much, and thank you also for keeping the time. So our next presentation will be about to know how to structure a national bibliography, and that's by presenting the series of the Deutsche National Bibliothek, the National German Library, and also they are providing like projection in the future about the future development and plans. And we have two presenters from the German National Library. Florian Betz, who is also a new co-opted member of the bibliography section, and we are very happy to have him. And Katharina Schönborn, and Florian has been part of the Digital Service Department of the German National Library since 2023. And prior to this, he has worked at the DNB section for intellectual and machine-based subject cataloging in project related to the integrated authority file. And Katerina has been part of the Digital Service Department equally of the German National Library since 2014, and prior to this she worked in the publishing and education sector. She holds a PhD in literature. Thank you for your contribution, Florian and Katerina. The floor is yours.
Okay, hello and welcome, dear listeners. Katharina and me are from the German National Library, as said. Thank you, Riab, for introducing us. Katharina is in Frankfurt and me in Leipzig, and we are pleased to have the possibility to report to you on structuring a national bibliography, the series of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie, historical genesis, current status, future plans. What will we be talking about? I will start and speak initially about our collection mandate and legal deposit. Subsequently, the structure of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie will be handled, combined with some statistics. Katharina will then continue. She will speak about advantages and challenges of this structure and then current deliberations on restructuring it. What is the collection mandate of the DNB, and is there a legal deposit? Our collection mandate encompasses texts, images, and sound recordings as physical and as non-physical media works. We have to collect from 1930 onwards. We were founded in 1912. Media works published in Germany, German language media works published abroad, foreign translations of German language media works published abroad, and so-called Germanica. It has foreign language media works published abroad that relate to Germany. We have to collect these publications in original to inventory, to index and to bibliographically record them, to secure them in the long term and make them available to the general public, and to provide centralized library and national bibliographic services. Due to this collection mandate, our catalogue has long time been nearly identical with the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie. Legal deposit is the main pillar of our collection building. It evolved from voluntary self-commitment of the publisher's book trade at the beginning to several legal regulations by the state. For the last time, legal deposit was stipulated by the law regarding the German National Library from 2006 and the related legal deposit regulation from 2008. According to these, 2 items of physical media works published in Germany have to be delivered as legal deposit copies, one for the site in Leipzig and one for the site in Frankfurt. Legal deposit encompasses also delivery of 1 item of non-physical media works. Publications that fall under our collection mandate but which are not subject to legal deposit obligation are acquired as gifts by exchange or purchase. That relates to German language media works and translations of German language publications published abroad, as well as to Germanica. For these publications, we collect only 1 item for the site in Leipzig. How does the structure of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie look like? The current structure consists of series, which are traditional and long-living. There are altogether 7 series. Each of them is subdivided by DDC subject categories. The 2 founding series have been published from the beginning of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie in 1931. Series A on a weekly basis with monographs and periodicals from the publisher's book trade, and Series B also on a weekly basis with monographs and periodicals from outside the publisher's book trade. In the 60s and 70s, some more series have been added to specify the structure. Series C quarterly for maps, Series H monthly for university publications. It includes partly titles from Series A and B. Series M monthly for printed music and music publications, and Series T monthly for recorded music. The last change to this structure was carried out in 2010 by establishing Series O monthly for online publications. As completing hint at this point, not a part of the current Deutsche Nationalbibliografie is the weekly new release service for advanced announcements and new publications, which has been introduced in 2003. It is based on title reports sent by publishers to the book trade database VLB, Verzeichnis lieferbarer Bücher, in English, German books in print. Selected title registrations only for physical media works are imported by a daily process and following displayed unchanged in the new release service. If we now look at the main criteria for defining the 7th series, at least 2 classes can be formed by the channel of distribution with publications from or outside the publisher's book trade in the founding series A and B, and the publication and media types for the younger series, C maps, H university publications, M printed music, T recorded music, and especially for series O online publications. All series except series O only comprise physical media works, and all non-physical media works are separated into series O. Let's have a closer look to series O for online publication, to its historical genesis during the period from 1998 to 2010. Major changes driven by the digitization or more overthrowing by the digital revolution, not at least taking place in the media market, have been topical in this period and still ongoing. How to collect and catalog online publications, how to get along with growing masses of non-physical media works. In 1998, DNB starts to collect online publication on an optional basis. In 2002, voluntary depositing of online publication is agreed with German publishers. In 2006, DNB has been obligated to collect non-physical media works. Legal deposit is extended as well, both by the law regarding the German National Library from 2006, which has already been cited. In 2010, as already mentioned also, the series O for online publication or non-physical media works has finally been introduced. In the same year, the print edition of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie is terminated and substituted by an online journal as PDF for all series, except for the new series O. How one can get access to the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie. Metadata is licensed under Creative Commons 0.1.0. Now, metadata is accessible for self-servicing via our catalog by filtering to series and volumes of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie. For small and medium-sized metadata downloads out of the catalog, we offer also a data shop. Then via SIU interface by a specific index, or as ongoing update as online synchronization of specific sets for the several series via OAI protocol for metadata harvesting, or as weekly offline dumps downloadable from a www or SFTP server. There are also full copies regularly provided for downloading. We offer for this a relatively wide range of export formats depending on the specific access option. Let's have a look at some statistics. Here you can see the absolute number of titles per year from 2010 to 2023 displayed in the various series of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie. Print production in Series A, monographs and periodicals from the publisher's book trade. Series B, from outside the publisher's book trade. Series C for maps. Series H, university publications. Series M for printed music and Series T for recorded music are all relatively constant but slightly declining over the last 14 years, whereas Series O online publication differs from the other series in its evolution. CSO is very large with approximately 100,000 to 330,000 titles per year and is constantly increasing. Due to retrospective imports, the extent of CSO is relatively fluctuating. That lifts the series up to nearly 600,000 titles in 2019. And this year, a big amount of online publications could be imported retrospectively due to technical developments. At the second chart, you can see the relative evolution from 2010 to 2023 for the series of the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie. The amount of titles in 2010 for each series has been set to 100% as basic value, and the values of the following years have been set in ratio. The already described relatively constant but slightly decreasing number of physical publications all series except series O can be observed here as well. An exception is series T for recorded music, which increased in between and ends again nearly by 100%. Series O for online publications or non-physical media works, on the other hand, shows an enormous increase in fluctuations. The peak in 2019 has just been explained before. At the last chart, you can see the numbers of online publications imported per year from 1998 to 2023, combined with online publications within Series O from 2010 to 2023. As mentioned before, the DNB catalog has long time been nearly identical to the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie. But since 2010, there's a bigger gap between them due to online publications. This gap is mainly caused by the huge amount of millions of online articles, which are excluded from Series O. With these impressions, I would like to overhand to Katharina for the second part. Thank you.
Okay, so after having heard about the foundation and development of the National Bibliography to today, in the final section of this presentation, we will now have a look at its advantages and challenges, as well as the deliberations for future developments. The advantages of any bibliography as it develops over time are quite straightforward. Standardization, structure, and quality always go hand in hand. In our case, only after, for example, a book came into DNB's holdings and a cataloger had ensured the quality of its bibliographic record, would this book be attributed to a series of the bibliography and be distributed. Historically, DNB's workflows are very closely linked to this logic. The National Bibliography has also been long-term preserved, first in its printed version and then from 2010 onwards in PDF format. However, past logics have come under increasing strain in recent years, along with the workflows stemming from them. And there are three I would like to point out in particular. As we saw in the graphs before, and as you are all undoubtedly aware, there is an enormous and sometimes even daunting increase in online publications. Florian explained that in 2010, Series O was established to accommodate for this fact. However, the quality and structural standards of the other series do not apply to Series O. In it, an ebook will stand next to a company's annual report or a music sheet. The attribution to the series does not happen after a cataloger has ensured quality and standard. It is an automated process. Unlike the other series, it was never turned into a publication, print or PDF. So in its logic, Series O deviates from the National Bibliography. At the same time, it is the series with the biggest continuously growing influx. But due to the lack of differentiation, its value to users is limited. And in this case, I'm speaking of the series itself, mind you, not the data records within it. They, of course, have many discriminating elements. Florian mentioned also the rules for legal deposit. In the current logic, only works with an object, analog or digital, present in DNB's holdings will be attributed to a series, even if it is known that there is a missing object of which the bibliographic record should be part in the National Bibliography, but they will not be mentioned at this time. In light of this situation, it has become obvious that the structure of the National Bibliography requires some renewal. Deliberations on this have been going on for some time, and they are very complex. But there are 2 points to be highlighted here. The key issue for the future is to make the National Bibliography more adaptable to the dynamics of the publication market. We don't know what's up in 20, 50, or 80 years. So an idea might be to leave the old structure behind in favor of a more generalized marker that an item belongs to the National Bibliography, and then rely on other bibliographic information to identify which kind of fictitious group or groups an item should be attributed to. Another low threshold idea was to split Series O to at least differentiate between online publications with free access and those with restricted access, and also to include the online articles that Florian mentioned before that are currently not in Series O. Closely linked to all of this is the necessity to offer users better ways to select their national bibliography. Our legal mission, as any national library's mission, is to serve the public. Therefore, a renewed national bibliography should answer to users' needs, and they keep becoming more individualized. That would require a more flexible, on-demand data shop, offering a broad range of selection criteria and formats. The idea being that users should be enabled to make their individual selection of bibliographic records, subscribe to their individual feed of the national bibliography, etc. So, as you can see, there are ideas of how to move on from here, but as usual, it is not done as easily as it is said. Path dependencies are everywhere. I once had a professor who used to define these as persistence of decisions made long ago, despite of a suboptimal outcome in the present. And in our case, that is true in many respects. The workflows within the National Library are seemingly inextricably linked to the logic of the National Bibliography. For decades, the work logic was optimized and developed around it, because despite all other projects and digitization and topics nowadays, the National Bibliography is our bread and butter business. So changing the status quo requires a lot of thinking and discussing, and it will also require a lot of resources. And those are sometimes hard to come by, as you probably all know. It also requires communication into the library landscape because, as was explained before, the German library system is a very federal system with several cooperating library associations. Indisputable, however, is the fact that the German National Bibliography needs to be modernized and adapted. And with this general agreement, we expect to be moving on over the next couple of years. Which brings us to the end of this presentation. Just to point out, if you would like to read more about the National Bibliography, you will find ample information on our website. And of course, feel free to contact us even after this webinar. Our email addresses can be found on the slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Florian and Katerina, for this presentation about the series of the German National Bibliography. That's really something that is requiring, I think, much administration and management and keeping track, and that maybe we'll come back to this in the question and answer part. And next, we'll be having a presentation. The last presentation for today is about, it's from Latin America. It is the current Brazilian bibliography. And it presents us with a new model of a national bibliography and how they managed to set it up from in the 70s. And our presenters are and co-authors are Eduardo da Silva Aletenjo and Gabriel Alves Pereira. And Eduardo is an associate professor at the Federal University of the State of Rio de Janeiro School of Librarianship. He holds a master's degree in social memory and documentation from the same university, and a PhD in information science from the University of Brasilia, and he's the developer of the web-based Brazilian Union Catalog. Gabriel is a founding member of the Brazilian Bibliographic Society. He holds a bachelor's degree in librarianship and master's degree in history from the Federal University of State of Rio de Janeiro, and he has dedicated his studies and research to codicology and medieval illuminated manuscripts. The floor is yours to present. Okay.
Okay.
We see this. We see the slide. Are you able to? Eduardo, do you hear me?
Hello. Yes, may
Hello.
I? Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't
Okay.
hear. Sorry. Good morning,
Okay.
everybody.
You can start
So
your presentation.
it's an honor. It's appear for you.
Yeah, yeah, but
Okay, thank you.
not in the mode of presenting, just the slide, but it's okay.
Okay.
Okay,
So I tried. Okay. So it's an honor for us to be in the IFLA webinar, building national bibliography models from around the world. Our work is about our Brazilian bibliography, current Brazilian bibliography. It's entitled Current Brazilian Bibliography in the Digital Era. My name is Eduardo, and my colleague is...
Hello, my name is Gabriel. So we already know that for the purpose of a nation, bibliography control is a broad-based activity intended to create a framework for systematic directory and management of the publications and inventory of the national cultural heritage, whether published by its citizen or about the country, making it publicly available in the form of current national bibliography. This presentation describes how Brazilian bibliography found its ways to be published by our national bibliographic agents and accessed on web through BN Digital's portal.
Our Brazilian...
Can you put it in the presentation mode so to have a bigger screen for our participants in the webinar?
In this way?
Full screen, Tej.
Oh.
Yes, it is. Oh my God. And now it's okay?
I cannot understand the Portuguese, so I cannot read what is on the icons. Isabel, can you come for a help?
I see, I see. I don't know how to do that.
It's okay, it's okay. You just go ahead, and I hope that
Okay.
our attendees can follow up with you. Okay, you just go ahead. Never mind.
Okay. So our bibliography in the past, the National Library of Brazil acts as the national bibliography agents in this Brazilian bibliography productions linked to legal deposit legislation. Brazilian bibliography has existed or tried to survive since the first concept of legal deposit legislation in Brazil. But in context of political crisis, Brazilian bibliography was marked by successive budget restrictions, publishing difficulties, publication gaps, and inconsistency for generation of official bibliographic records in accordance with internationally accepted standards. Its history shows us, Its history shows a discontinuation of Brazilian bibliography, where the Brazilian bibliography agents had difficulties to guarantee its relevance, making their tasks of cultural preservation and dissemination of record knowledge.
In the digital era, current Brazilian bibliography has expanded its effectiveness and reach within society. Nowadays, the Brazilian bibliography framework is better than in past decades. In its formal attributions, the National Library Foundation also acts as a national bibliographic agency, and the most evident expression of its actions is the organization of current Brazilian bibliography developed from legal deposit laws.
Long terms to reach this current model, but the Brazilian National Library called in Portuguese Fundação Biblioteca Nacional, is the unit responsible for safeguarding Brazilian cultural memory. Since the 19th century, 14 legal deposit standards have been established. The first rules aimed to enrich his collection. But since the advent of the Universal Bibliographic Control Program in 1977, the National Library of Brazil has decided the functions of the National Bibliography Agents, now established by Brazilian Decree 8,297, and it includes the maintenance of legal deposit system in Brazil. Currently, legal deposits in Brazil covers printed and digital works, and the aim is to guarantee the collection, storage, and dissemination of Brazilian intellectual production, reflecting current national bibliography.
But what has changed? Two initiatives can be highlighted. In 1973, the conception of the CALCO computer-readable cataloging format, adaptation of the Mark II format for Brazil. And in 2005, the Constitution. Eduardo.
Sorry.
Yes,
sorry.
Thank you. Okay. In 2005, the Constitution of the Brazilian National Digital Library, BN Digital.
Since the conceptual Universal Bibliographic Control Program, Brazil has been a participant in the ideas and recommendations to improve its national bibliography.
Between the 1970s and early 1990s, under a competing structure of public library social and editorial spheres, the spire of bibliographic control allowed their operations to move from the local to a national base from CALCO's development. CALCO, a bibliographic format that enabled the exchange of information by libraries and represented the milestone of automated bibliographic records process in Brazil. The CALCO format was instrumented by a large network of libraries called Bibliodata and led by the Brazilian National Library.
With the CALCO format, the aim was to consolidate infrastructure driven by automation to streamline the library process, as well as avoid the duplication of cataloging and classification service, and consequently, improving technical improvements, bibliographic standardization, cost reduction. The Bibliodata CALCO network was a pioneer in Brazil in creating a cooperative cataloging network. In technical terms, Bibliodata network and CALCO form an infrastructure driven by automation to streamline bibliographic organization process, become essential for the current Brazilian bibliographic production.
So, Brazilian Digital Library was created in 2005. Since then, BN Digital has functioned as a national bibliographic catalog, as well as housing the current national bibliography on the web. The access to BN Digital is broad and unrestricted full-time. The entire collection can be consulted free of charge with its usability, portability, and scalability guaranteed by constantly updated technologies. The current Brazilian bibliography can be accessed and searched online as part of BN Digital.
That's an example in this figure how you can find, identify official bibliographic records at the BN Digital website. Simply access Search Week. With the filter in all fields, it's possible to research bibliographic records by year or bi-monthly production. For example, using the term BNB 0119, the result obtained corresponded to the number of records within Brazilian bibliography in the first 2 months of 2019. In this example, this figure is so short, but you can retrieve about 4,759 items.
The last IFLA guidelines for national bibliographies cover a series of recommendations for improvements to the national bibliography of countries that share the ideal of universalizing knowledge based on the Universal Bibliography Control Program. Under these guidelines, the composition of Brazilian Bibliographic Control presents all the technical and legal requirements to make the current Brazilian bibliography available on web. This composition consists: number 1, legislation on the depository of bibliographic and musical works. Number 2, National Library as Brazilian Bibliographic Agents. Number 3, bibliographic standardization internationally compatible for the communication and dissemination of Brazilian bibliographic heritage. Number 4, interoperable official bibliographic records. And number 5, current national bibliography, web-based, bi-monthly, available at BN Digital. Such structure supports society, publishers, and librarians in many ways.
Such initiatives were means for our current bibliography to reach its current model shown in the figure. But first, you have a national library that access our national bibliographic agents, and is conferred by decree. With adoption of MAC 21 to support bibliographic standardization and bibliographic records diffusion, current national bibliography is accessible on BN Digital website, and information retrieval based on interoperability by using Dublin Core and YAPMH. Exchange of best practice and the cooperation. For example, you have reunion catalogs and a subject reading database. It's always possible. All this is possible because you have a formal legal deposits covering bibliographic and music items, printed, analog, and digital.
So the final words: current Brazilian bibliography web-based has the following characteristics: exhaustive coverage, open access, web-based, free of charge to bibliographic records, also adapted for access on smartphones and mobile electronic device. Its publication is bi-monthly and occurs as deposited items have their corresponding register. Its updating and effective distribution are quality criteria for the measure of effectiveness applied by Brazilian bibliographic agents. In 2022, the average monthly number of visits to BN Digital exceeded 7 million searches per month to consult official bibliographic data.
So we introduce a select bibliography for this presentation, and we thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation about the National Brazilian Bibliography and how two initiatives led to establishing it. And then now I'm asking all the presenters to come forward and to come at the forefront and also Maud, our moderator, for the question and answer discussion, for a final discussion. We're still missing, we have everyone here. We are missing people from Philippines. We are missing, yes, okay. Thank you so much. So Maud, would you come forward and present yourself and lead this question and answer part?
Yes, thank you very much, Rehab, and thank you everyone for your presentations. I'm sure everyone has found plenty of inspiration and interesting ideas to share with their colleagues. And we have received a couple of questions in the Q&A box. You can still ask your question, there's still time. And I have some questions myself. So let's start with a question from the audience. So there's a question for Mathilde regarding ISBDM and RDAFR. So ISBDM is out for the worldwide review this year. How is this anticipated to interoperate with RDAFR? Will RDAFR still refer to ISBD Consolidated Edition?
Thank you. So, as everyone here, I'm awaiting eagerly the publication of ISBDM for review. So I don't know what exactly we will find in it that might cause problems or not with RDAFR. I would say that as they were built along the same principles, I don't anticipate too much of a problem, because RDAFR is our way of complying with IFLA LRM, and ISBDM, if I'm not mistaken, and Rehab, you will correct me if I'm wrong, also tends towards that goal. So hopefully it won't be too much of a problem. I would just add that we have this cataloging tradition based on ISBD as a cataloging standard, but at the National Bibliography, we also use ISBD as a display standard. And that's another question entirely. I don't exactly know what the National Bibliography will look like in a few years when we are creating full LRM native records, but that's one of our interesting challenges. And it also, of course, depends on how ISBD continues to evolve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mathilde. So
Can I intervene here since you
sure.
asked me? Because I'm still a member of the Manifestation Task Force. So they had the Manifestation Task Force and the ISBD review group. They had an introductory meeting to the worldwide review last Thursday, and the worldwide review shall start by mid-May for a couple of months, I think. So I'm part of the Manifestation Task Force, but I don't take this decision. There are people here for this in the ISBD review group. And that's why, Mathilde, all of the library community, all of us are really called to participate in this review to enhance this and to say what it has and what it lacks, so it can be a product that you can, a cataloging standard that you can apply and use it. So please go ahead when it's open for the worldwide review and send your comments and everything. That's something aside of our webinar today.
Thank you, Rehab, for this information. The next question will be for Florian and Katharina. So what about the future of national bibliography in Germany? I mean, do you have new projects, plans for the future of the national bibliography?
I will take this one, Florian. Looking at the timestamp, I think it was before the slide on current deliberations was presented. So I can't tell you exactly what will happen because there are different ideas of how to move forward or when. One thing that definitely is going to happen is that we have to modernize our data shop. We have one, and we have many different metadata services, but what we want to do is to bring these together in one centralized platform in the future, offering many more individualized possibilities to get your data dumps, to use our interfaces, to do searches, etc. So I think maybe that will come first, and then the big restructuring will take place. Maybe the restructuring will be a side effect of this new data of these new data offerings that we can give, because it simply becomes obvious that everything you want, you can get there in, you know, the series that you want, that you individually shape yourself. So that is definitely going to come. But when exactly we will restructure what, I cannot tell. I don't have a big glass ball, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Katarina. There was another question that was addressed to the National Library of Philippines. It's already been answered in the Q&A box, but I think it's interesting for the audience. And I'd like to ask the same question also to the other speakers. So the question was, so for the colleagues from the National Library of Philippines, your institution has a very large retrospective file that is not yet included in your COA ILS as individual bibliographic records. Do you have any plans to integrate the retrospective cataloging records into your ILS? What challenges, if any, does the retrospective catalog present to your institution and researcher? Jennifer has already answered that question, but I'd like her to give some more explanation maybe on the challenges you have encountered while scanning the old files and make them available in your ILS online. So please, Jennifer, maybe you can elaborate a bit on that and explain the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. As to the content of the Philippine National Bibliography, in our system, we have scanned the old files and made them available online. We are currently updating our COHA integrated library system, which is, we use the 2.29 version, and now we're transferring our data to COHA ILS 20.11 system. So we're currently migrating our old records to the new records or to the new system. For the challenges, we have how many number of catalogers, Marbs? We have, I think, 8 full-time catalogers at the National Library of the Philippines, and some of our records is in 3x5 card, which we used previously and needed to be encoded in the new system.
Also, ma'am, may I add, those retrospective records are in the AACR, and yet we are using the RDA. So we have to update our technical standards for that records.
Thank you. Does any of the other speakers want to explain their policy regarding the retrospective records? How have they managed to include them in the ILS? Or if not, what were the difficulties and why they haven't done it so far? No one?
Okay, just in case anyone is confused, they mean the integrated library system or the national bibliography mod was a question about just a catalog of the National Library, or it was about the National Bibliography itself?
Let me check the question, the initial question.
So how about to all the presenters, how about including the retrospective, the difficulties you have or you encounter? It's the question general for all the presenters. Integrating the retrospective records that weren't here or created at the time of the creation of the National Bibliography. Can anyone feed us back about this?
Oh, yes, may I? Sorry, my connection is terrible. Sorry, I apologize. But what differentiates our national bibliography from others to this moment is usually you have a different, a product different, separated from the national cataloging, or sometimes the national bibliography is considered everything that is registered in the national catalog is the national bibliography. Brazil found our way that you have a different a product, you have a catalog, and you have a national bibliography, but on the same portal, you can research, you can search everybody, including in retrospective bibliography, old and the hair books, for example, or exactly what is right now being deposited in Brazilian National Bibliography.
Thank you, Eduardo. It's interesting because we had a similar question in the chat. Someone asked about the relationship between the National Bibliography and other metadata services and products provided by the National Library. So are those two clearly apart worlds, or how is it related in your library? Maybe Mathilde, you can answer that question.
With pleasure.
Thanks.
So in France, we've always made a clear intellectual distinction between the bibliography and the catalog. The bibliography is, as every bibliography, it's something we select and we organize and we prepare for users according to a number of criteria. Whereas the catalog is a search engine. You can start with a very vague idea of what you need or a very precise idea of what you need and just navigate the catalog. So we say that they are complementary in that respect as products for users. And this is why we decided when we created the new website in 2020 to still have a separate website for the bibliography from the catalog, even though it can be seen as a subcatalog in that it uses the same technology and the same data as the catalog. But you have indexes in the bibliography, you have ways of refining your search that are specific to that set of data, that is the national bibliography, that is linked to legal deposit and so on. With big national libraries, and oftentimes national libraries are the National Bibliographic Agency, you usually have a catalog that is very big, very rich, with different strata of metadata. So you may have recent metadata that is structured and formatted and more easy to manipulate. You can have older data that comes from retrospective cataloging and so on. It's more difficult to control such a big catalog with millions or billions of records, whereas the bibliography can stay its own sub-product that can be manipulated in different ways. So that would be my answer from the French perspective.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting point indeed. We also have a question for Germany again. So for the colleagues at the National Bibliothek, how is the current system of series implemented? Is it a metadata term with which a bibliographic item is annotated, or are series completely different datasets?
Yeah, I can answer to this. In cataloging records, there are codes, and based on these codes, the series as metadata products are formed. And for every item, every volume of the National Bibliography, there is a weekly or monthly or quarterly number. And this number is based on the codes in the cataloging record and is also inscribed in cataloging records. These are the two facets in the metadata records, which are cataloged at different stages of the workflow of metadata production. The codes are at the beginning of the workflow, and the numbers of the volumes of the national bibliographies are at the end of the workflow. These are two facets.
Thank you for your input. Yes, we have, oh, Mathilde, yes?
If I may ask a question, it's also for our colleagues from the Deutsche Nationalbibliografie. I was fascinating to see that you had a series, well, two series that distinguish between professional publishing and non-professional publishing. And if I understand correctly, that dates back a while. It's not a recent thing. Looking at it from my perspective, I was thinking about self-publishing specifically and wondering if that was part of Series B. And if so, in the graphs you showed, it seems to be fairly stable. Whereas in France, and I know in a number of other countries, self-publishing has been on the rise in recent years. Is that a phenomenon you've encountered?
Yeah, I can answer also. Self-publishing or publishing on demand is also a big topic in our stacks, and it isn't so clear as it was over decades what is publisher and what is not a publisher, or who publishes outside of the publisher's book trade, and that is evolving and makes it more difficult to decide whether it's for Series A or for Series B. That's one reason for giving up this structure in the future, maybe. And yeah, that's is a question for us also. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to react on that matter? Okay, then I'll turn to the next question. So this one is not addressed to a particular speaker, so feel free to answer. How are you all preparing for the age of digital objects? So transforming the components of bibliographic records in entities uniquely identified. Are you prepared for BibFrame? That's a big question. Who wants to take this one?
I think the question has two aspects. One, maybe they are talking about the generative AI material, or everybody is confused about what to do and if to include what makes them worthy of inclusion in a national bibliography, or their value to the national cultural heritage. Also, what about their bibliographic control, maybe? And second part, it's about BibFrame, and I think BibFrame is an application of linked data in the catalog. So, and it has been around for like more than 10 years now. So what about, it's a question for reflection. Has anyone in the national bibliographies present here thought about what to do about the generative AI materials? Any thoughts about this, or any premises of work, of policy, or whatever about what to do about them?
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. what I see, it depends from the capacity, the technology capacity of a country. I suppose I figure out. For example, Australia has bibliographic control of digital. I suppose in Britain also, okay. But they have technology capacities. They have so many librarians working for National Bibliographic Control. But yes, but there are other indicators that will be considered. For example, how is interesting for a country, for a nation, for a society, the treatment of all kind of digital items or some digital items, or how to develop a collection of digital, what is interesting for a society, for a nation, for the information politics of a nation. I think this must be considered. It's not a technical activity only. That's what I see.
Just checking if there's another question. I think we have answered all of them, but I have other questions. This is a general question. I mean, it's not relating to any particular national bibliography. Promoting the national bibliography is a very important aspect, obviously, but it's not always easy to achieve. So I was wondering, how do you ensure that your national bibliography reaches its audience? By which I mean that the various target audiences like libraries, researchers, etc., they are aware of its existence and the potential of it.
Maybe I will start. What we can say is that we offer a really wide range of services where you can get your national bibliography in different formats and via different interfaces in weekly selections. Florian had a slide before showing the different ways of supplying. And that is very important, and it's becoming more and more important to offer different access options. I think that, yeah, that's what we see, because there is a constant increase in demand. Yes.
And are you contacted by those researchers, or do you reach out to them? Do you contact universities? Do you have collaborative projects to make the data sets known? I mean, it's not just, it's not only, I mean, having the information on the website is great, but we all know that we need to do more. So to make the national bibliography and its potential visible for our audience.
Yes, I think since the library landscape in Germany is so federal, there are a lot of working groups with different library associations. They again have their contacts into the university libraries, so it's really, it trickles down and broad in all directions. So it's not just the National Library that has to do the let's say the marketing for it, which of course we do, but there is an awareness among those who want to use it, let's say. And of course, we are approached by researchers and there are projects going on. Yes.
Does anyone else? Yes, Jennifer, please.
For the National Library of the Philippines, we promote our PNB in our social media account at the National Library of the Philippines. We made short videos about the Philippine National Bibliography. Also, our Commission on Higher Education is currently included in their accreditation, the number of resources or number of books created by faculty, which is one of the indicator of for the evaluation, performance evaluations of faculty, which includes screenshots of Philippine of inclusion of their books at the Philippine National Bibliography.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wants to react on that question? Well, otherwise, Florian and Katharina, I have another question for you. So it's more of a practical question regarding your collection mandate. You said that you have to collect German language works published abroad. So my question is, how do you make sure to collect that material? Do you collaborate with other institutions in Austria or Switzerland, for example?
I cannot answer exactly for this question because my place is not at this point in our workflow. It's at the very beginning, and we are sitting at the very end of this chain for distributing. And I worked before in subject cataloging department, and here in Leipzig we have the items coming from abroad because we collect only one item. And I had an impression of in history what comes in, and that doesn't mean I know how it comes in. But I think there are looks at other national bibliographies and contexts. There's importers for literature from certain countries, but this is very personal view and not so deeply founded. Maybe some other colleague could tell it more precisely. You can write us an email and we will look if we found out something more to answer to it.
Great, thank you very much, Florian. I also have another question for Mathilde. So Mathilde, you've talked about the evolving coverage policies and the impressive increase in the number of documents arriving via a legal deposit. And how do you deal with that in a timely manner? Did you have to make compromises on the quality of the data, for example?
Yes. I was talking about self-published books earlier. We have cataloged them at a slightly less full level of cataloging for about 15 years now. And we've had to revise that policy to make the records even simpler a few years ago because we still couldn't manage the sheer input of that particular collection. When I said legal deposit for books had almost doubled over 25, 30 years, a big part of that rise is down to self-published books. But so one important thing is we still produce full level records for authors because we think it's of utmost importance to maintain the national authority data file. And we're still trying to find new ways of managing this influx. One of the problems here is, as I said, it combines with the training of catalogers and the challenges of automation. I think it would be really interesting for us to find a way of automating more than we do it now, tasks that are repetitive and on which catalogers tend to make errors like typos and that kind of things. You know, all our rules about capital letters and punctuations and stuff like that, that new catalogers seem to have to really struggle to take on board, whereas older generations didn't have a problem with them. And this is not, when you look at it, it's not the main added value of human cataloging anyway. So if we could find ways to let the machine do that and have catalogers catalog things that need human intervention, maybe that would help us with this constant challenge of cataloging in a timely manner. So that's a tiny bit of an answer to a very big question.
Thank you very much. I think it's a challenge that many national libraries and many bibliographic information agency are encountering nowadays. Does someone else want to react?
Yes, automation is definitely an issue in assigning subject headings to Series O, for example, which, like we mentioned, no cataloger ever sees. So AI is going to be of increasing importance. And yeah, now it's not AI per se, but automation and automatic matching and merging at all sorts of stages in our workflows. Yes. And of course, catalogers decrease somehow. There are less of them and more books to come. So yeah, that's a problem.
Yes, we have the same situation in the KBR in Belgium. So yeah, I understand your point of view. Did you have any other questions, or I can have a last one?
Actually, the discussion is so energizing. So I will keep my question for later on afterwards to the panelists and to the presenter, maybe to ask them in private through emails. We give the priority to our audience, and also if you have a general question to all the national bibliographies.
So anyone else from the audience, please write your questions. There's still time.
Actually, I have a question about the authority files and their relation to the national bibliography itself, and how the production works, and how do you do to at the delivery, I mean the terms of availability for the libraries who wants to have those records, either the authority record or the bibliography records. And maybe it's a big question, and if you feel that it will take very long to answer here, we can discuss this maybe in another event.
I can give a short answer. In France, creating the authority file is completely part of the work of the catalogers in legal deposit, and other catalogers at the library who catalog acquisitions can also work on those records, but it's very linked to legal deposit. And those records are, like every record from the library, are available under an open license. That is, I think, the equivalent of CC BY or CC 0.
Thank you, Mathilde. And I want to ask about their use by the National Bibliography, because maybe it's another question. Thank you.
And may I add something?
Sure.
Oh, thank you. In South America, or in special in Brazil, you have difficulty to maintain our current national bibliography. It's a problem. Whatever, what is we need to be together. I believe that the future of national bibliographic control is web and this new technology. And I believe that Union Catalog, International Union Catalog, or Regional Union Catalog in South America, for example, or Latin America, you contribute to develop and improve our national bibliographies. In Brazil, you have a project. It's about a Brazilian National Union Catalog, and it's supported by Bibliographic Society. Brazilian Bibliographic Society, and it's very difficult to us to establish new goals to, I don't know what could happen in this region, but I believe in the future is web, and together cooperation will be more strong.
Thank you, Eduardo. I will give the mic to Rehab so she can conclude and we can finish on time this webinar.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the organizing team, and thank you to our participants who stayed with us for attending, who stayed for us until now, despite we had like 30 minutes beyond the time expected for the webinar, but that shows a big interest in the webinar theme, and also the presentation that gave much interest to the audience. And thank you everyone for coming. A last reminder for people who joined us late, our second webinar in this series will take place on Thursday, 27th of June at the same time, and it will bear the title of National Bibliography's Wider Perspectives. And we're going to explore other types of national bibliographies or maybe comparative studies. Stay tuned. We'll be in touch soon, like within a month, about the details. And thank you very much for having been with us today. We encouraged you encouraged us to continue and with on a regular basis, getting in touch with you with our events.